and regular business meeting of the Wappinger Central School District Board of Education is called to order at 6:30 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence for the following staff members who recently passed away: Barbara Barrett and Lila Hirschman, both retired teachers. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for joining us today in the first meeting of the Board of Education for the 22-23 school year. Congratulations to incumbents Marie Johnson and Eddie Sloshower on their re-election, and congratulations to newly elected board member Cheryl Meggets. These board members will serve 3 years until June 30th, 2025. Item 3.01 on the agenda is the administration of the oath of office to the elected board members. Please come forward, Mrs. Johnson, Mrs. Meggets, and Mr. Sloshower. Mrs. Johnson, we'll do you first. I'm going to stand up and I'm going to have you right there. Okay. Yes, it's on. You're going to raise your right hand.
Careful, lady.
Here, down to here.
I will support the Constitution. I, Marie Johnson, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of board member of the Wappinger Central School District Board of Education for the term July 1, 2022 to June 30th, 2025, according to the best of my ability.
Have you sign? Thank you, Trustee Johnson. Mrs. Meggets, you're going to read your oath from here down to here.
I, Cheryl Meggets, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of board member of the Wappinger Central School District Board of Education for the term July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2025, according to the best of my ability.
Please sign. Thank you, Mrs. Meggets. Mr. Sloshower. Okay, please raise your right hand. You're going to read from here down to here.
I, Eddie A. Sloshower, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of board member of the Wappinger Central School District Board of Education for the term July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2025, according to the best of my ability.
Please sign. Thank you, Mrs. Sloshower. Moving on to item 3.02, Superintendent Oath of Office. Dr. Bonk, may I ask you to come forward to take your oath?
Make sure you get every word, okay? I absolutely.
Dr. Bonk, please raise your right hand. You're going to read from here.
I, Dr. Dwight Bonk, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, that I will faithfully discharge the duties of Superintendent of Schools for the Wappinger Central School District for the 2022-2023 school year, according to the best of my ability.
Thank you, Dr. Bonk. Please sign.
Thank you.
Okay, now on to item 4.01, the election of the board president. I am now requesting nominations for the position of board president for the 22-23 school year. Do I have any nominations? Mr. Spencer,
I nominate John Lumia.
is there a second? Mr. McFarland? Are there any other nominations for board president? Mr. Sloshower?
I nominate Marie Johnson.
Okay. Is there a second for Marie Johnson? Mrs. Meggetts, thank you. Any other nominations for the office of board president? Going once? Going twice? Okay, nominations are declared closed. So we have John Lumia and Marie Johnson, all in favor of John Lumia for the office of President of the Board of Education, please raise your hand. Jim Spencer, Mike McFarland, Peggy Kellen, John Lumia, and John Morgan. All in favor of Marie Johnson for the office of President of the Board of Education, please raise your hand.
You forgot one.
I'm sorry, who
You
did I miss?
forgot one.
Mr.
Trustee
Odoms,
Odoms.
who did you vote for? Mr. Lumia, thank you. All in favor of Marie Johnson for the office of President of the Board of Education, please raise your hand. Eddie Sloshower, Marie Johnson, Cheryl Meggetts, thank you. Mr. Lumia, you have been appointed President of the Board of Education for the 22-23 school year. Please come forward to take your oath of office. Let's go to the mic. Raise your right hand. Right hand is up. Right hand. I, all the way here. Sit.
I, John Lumia,
Raise your right hand up.
I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York. I will faithfully discharge all the duties of the office of President of the Wapato Central School District Board of Education for the year 2022-2023 school year, according to the best of my ability.
Very good. Please sign the oath book. Okay, Mr. Lumia, I will give you the.
Andrew, you did such a great job, Alberta. They should do this also. Are there any nominations for Vice President for the board? Marie? Marie Johnson?
Eddie Sloshower.
I'm sorry.
Eddie Sloshower.
Second? Okay, Megan, any other nominations?
I would like to nominate
Keith?
Peggy Keller.
Second? Any other nominations? Going once? As Peggy, going twice, going three times. All those in favor of Peggy Kellen, raise your hands, please. Okay, all right, you want the names?
I got it.
Okay, all those in, for Eddie Slashow? Okay, Peggy Kellen has got the 5 votes. Thereby the Vice President.
Peggy, please come forward and take the oath of office. We'll go right to the mic. Raise your right hand. Read from here down to here.
I, Peggy Kellen, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Vice President of the Wapato Central School District Board of Education for the 2022-2023 school year, according to the best of my ability.
Please sign. Thank you, Mrs. Kellen.
members review, sign the code of ethics.
Yeah.
So please turn them in, sign and give to.
Your mic's off, John.
Your mic.
Please sign the code of ethics and turn it into either to me or to Alberta. Alberta has one here. Alberta. Here. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Alberta, all set? 6.01, appointments of officers for the school year. Peggy?
Resolved that the Board of Education of the Wappinger Central School District does hereby approve the appointment of the following officers for the 2022-2023 school year as stated.
Motion. Peggy, second. Marie, discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. 6.02, approve appointments. I'm sorry, Keith, where's, I think Keith, I was thinking he had an emergency.
Yeah, so, okay, sorry.
Resolved that the Board of Education of the Wappinger Central School District does hereby approve the following appointments for the 2022-2023 school year as stated.
Motion, Marie, second. Peggy, discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. 6.01, 6.02, approval appointments, please. 6.03?
Yeah.
I think you're right, thank you. Designation, 6.3, designation appointments.
Resolved that the Board of Education of the Wappinger Central School District does hereby approve the following designation appointments for the 2022-2023 school year as stated.
Motion, Mike, second. Marie, discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. 6.04, designation appointments, acting superintendent.
Resolved that the Board of Education does hereby approve the designation appointment for acting superintendent for the 2022-2023 year as stated.
Motion, Marie, second. Peggy, all those, discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. 6.05, designation to appoint impartial hearing officer.
Whereas Commissioner Regulation 200.5 directs that the Board of Education arrange for an impartial hearing officer in accordance with the Commissioner's rules, and whereas the Commissioner's regulations require that the rotational process must be initiated immediately, but not later than 2 business days after receipt by the school district of the written request for the hearing, and whereas the Commissioner's regulations allow the Board of Education to designate one or more of its members to appoint the impartial hearing officer once an available impartial hearing officer from the rotational list has been found to be available. Now therefore be it resolved that the board president or vice president be designated as having the power to appoint an impartial hearing officer who has been selected in accordance with the regulations of the Commissioner of Education on behalf of the Board of Education.
Motion, Marie, second. Mike, discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. 6.06, designation official bank building.
Resolved that the following banks and/or trust companies be and hereby are designated as the official depositories for the funds as stated.
Motion, Mike, second. Marie, discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. 6.07, designation of official newspapers. Now, before we read that, obviously there are two newspapers. If anybody wants to add to that particular list, please say so you can read it. Okay, read it.
Resolved that the Board of Education designate the Poughkeepsie Journal and the Southern Dutchess News as the official newspapers of the Wappinger Central School District for the 2022-2023 school year.
Motion, Mike, second, Marie. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. 6.08, designation special education.
Resolved that the Board of Education of the Wappinger Central School District does hereby approve the following special education designations for the 2022-2023 school year as stated.
Motion, Marie, second, Vicky. Discussion, all those in favor? Unanimous. 6.09, authorizations.
Resolved that the Board of Education of the Wappinger Central School District does hereby approve the following authorizations for the 2022-2023 school year as stated.
Motion, Jim, second, Ms. Meggett, second. All those, any discussion? Those in favor? Unanimous. 6.10, authorization of petty cash accounts.
Resolved that the Board of Education does hereby authorize the following petty cash accounts be established for the 2022-2023 school year as stated.
Motion, Marie, second, Peggy. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. 6.11, authorization of change funds.
Resolved that the Board of Education does hereby authorize the following change funds be established for the 2022-2023 school year as stated.
Motion, Peggy, second, Ms. All in favor? Unanimous. Authorization of certified tax adjustments. I'm sorry, 6.12, authorization to transfer state aid funds by wire.
Resolved that the Wappinger Central School District be authorized to direct the State Education Department to transfer state aid funds by wire to the approved bank of record per annum.
Motion, Marie, second, Cheryl. All those in favor? Unanimous. Authorization of certified tax adjustments.
Whereas the Wappinger Central School District is a tax levying body authorized to correct errors on the tax rolls pursuant to Real Property Tax Law 554, and whereas the Wappinger Central School District wishes to delegate to an official the responsibility of certifying payment due for the correction of errors on the tax roll. Now therefore be it resolved. 1, that the Wappinger Central School District delegate to the Internal Claims Auditor the authority to examine applications for the correction of errors on the tax rolls and approve or reject such applications for the correction of errors on the tax rolls, which are levied upon by the Board of Education under Section 554 of the Real Property Tax Law, but only to the extent that any such correction of errors is no greater than $2,500. 2, that this delegation of authority shall be effective only for the calendar year in which the school tax rolls are being levied.
Motion, Mike, second, Marie. Discussion. All those in favor? Unanimous. 6.14, approval of PMA self-funded worker compensation.
Resolved that the Board of Education does hereby renew PMA to continue to represent the district as a third-party administrator for the 2022-2023 school year.
Motion, Marie, second, Mike. Discussion. All those in favor? Unanimous. 6.15, continued participation in class.
Resolved that the Board of Education of the Wappinger Central School District does hereby approve the district's continued participation in the Cooperative Liquid Asset Security System, CLASS, pursuant to Article 5.6, Section 1190 of the General Municipal Law is hereby affirmed.
Motion, Marie, second. Peggy, discussion. All those in favor? Unanimous. 6.16, notification of BOCES bid participation.
Resolved that the Wappinger Central School District shall participate in any BOCES bid and BOCES cooperative consortium that are in the best interest of the district during the 2022-2023 school year.
Motion, Jim, second, Peggy. Discussion. All those in favor? Unanimous. 6.17, approval of 403B plan administrator.
Resolved that the Board of Education renew Omni Group as the third-party administrator of our 403B plan for employees at a cost of $3,156 as detailed in a memo dated June 21st, 2022 from the Assistant Superintendent for Finance and Business Development to the Superintendent of Schools.
Motion, Marie, second, Peggy. Discussion. All those in favor? Unanimous. 6.18, bonding of personnel.
Resolved that the following individuals be bonded under the district's insurance policy as stated.
Motion, Marie, second, Jim. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. 7.01, adoption of board president powers.
Resolved that the Board of Education of the Wappinger Central School District does hereby adopt board president powers as stated.
Motion, Marie, second, Peggy. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. 7.02, readoption of district policies.
You have to give a second.
Second. I think it was-
Yes, be it further resolved that the above resolution is approved with the understanding that the Board of Education will be informed of any monies borrowed under this authorization, including the date of such occurrence, related interest to be paid, and the period of time to be covered by the borrowed funds.
Motion.
Uh.
Peggy, second. Marie, discussion? All in favor?
Point of information.
John?
So
Which one is it?
we've approved the president powers, and this is a separate motion. Be it further resolved, that's the second resolution, all under 7.01.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Questions? All those in favor? Unanimous. 7.02, readoption of district policies.
Resolved that the Board of Education does hereby readopt all existing 2021-2022 board policies for continuation during the 2022-2023 school year unless revised or retired by action of the Board of
Motion,
Education.
Marie, second, Peggy. Discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Adoption. 7.03, adoption of board education meeting calendar.
Resolved that the Board of Education of the Wappinger Central School District does hereby adopt the 2022-2023 Board of Education meeting calendar as stated.
Motion. Peggy, second. Marie, discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Acceptance, 7.04, acceptance of cell phone inventory.
Resolved that the Board of Education of the Wappinger Central School District hereby accepts the inventory of cell phones for the 2022-2023 school year as stated.
Motion, Marie, second. Peggy, all those in favor? Any discussion?
I have something to
I'm
ask.
sorry?
So I just have discussion, just question for, I guess, Dr. Baum. Under administrators, it says one, only one of the senior administrative staff has a cell phone?
Many use their personal phones. As far as the only administrator that has one, it's Director Broas, correct? It's Director Broas. Everyone else utilizes their own cell phone.
Because the senior staff is pretty much always on call.
Yes,
Okay,
we utilize our own phones.
okay, so that's something for the board.
District doesn't pay for our phone usage. We handle that
I got
ourselves.
it. That's something for the board to consider in the future, I think. That's it.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, any other further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. 7.05, approval of average hourly overtime rate for custodians and groundskeepers for facility usage.
Resolved that the Board of Education does hereby approve the following hourly overtime rates for custodians and groundskeeper to be reflected in policy 1500E2, building usage and fee schedule as stated.
Motion, Marie, second. Peggy, any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. 8.01, membership of the Dutchess County School Board Association. Before making an appointment, I'll make an announcement that Peggy Keller is the president of that particular association. So we need a volunteer for that particular spot. Anybody want to volunteer for that?
No, I don't think so. You don't have, you don't need another person. Because it's just one voting delegate per district, but any board member is welcome to attend any of the meetings. So you don't need
The
another.
president would lose that particular position.
No, it's not, yeah, I would accept it because I'd be there anyway, so you don't need another person. It's just one vote per district, yeah,
So it's like one person per district?
yeah,
Being the president?
that votes, everybody can come.
Okay, but obviously.
Yeah.
Okay, in that case,
Resolved that the Board of Education does hereby elect to join the Dutchess County School Boards Association for the 2022-2023 school year for an annual dues amount of $895, no increase from previous 3 years. Be it further resolved that Peggy Kelland be designated as the Wapato Central School District DCSBA Director on the Association's Board of Directors for the 2022-2023 school year.
Motion, Marie, second. Jim, discussion? Those in favor? Unanimous? 8.02, membership New York State School Board Association.
Resolved that the Board of Education does hereby approve the membership of the New York State School Boards Association for the 2022-2023 school year at a cost of $12,754, no increase from previous 3 years.
Motion, Marie, second. Peggy, discussion? Jim?
I know that this has been a subject of discussion in years past. The cost $12,754. I think it's well worth it. I know that the district clerk utilizes several utilities that this provides us, as well as board members. So I just want to say that it is a cost, but in my opinion, it's well worth it.
Anyone else? Peggy?
I'd like to point out that in addition to getting cut rates on board docs, policy update service, which have been set that if we dropped out and came back in, we'd have to pay more. The member rate would be a higher member rate than it currently is. We're grandfathered in with the current member rate as long as we stay continuous members. Ms. Pedro uses them for research often on general legal questions that are not specific to our specific situation. She gets free legal advice from NISBA attorneys, and so we don't have to call upon our lawyers and get billed hours for that. Also, we get special rates for all the conferences we attend as members, and this past 2 years during the pandemic and shutdown, they have given us a number of free webinars for board members, and I know I've attended a number of them, and and it's put on. It's recorded so board members can see them later if it interfered with your work or family schedule. We also get the onboard newspaper, the Eclipse emails, and they will provide a complimentary 90-minute board retreat, and it's not just virtual as it says here. They'll do it in person. They'll come and do a board retreat for us. When we paid consultants in the past to do board retreats, it's thousands of dollars. So this is very nice. All they charge us for is just their travel expenses from driving from Albany or wherever they live. And they will follow up with us also if we so desire. In addition, they do advocacy for us regularly. They have 3 people who are constantly on the Hill in Albany and with the state education department lobbying for things that we advocate for all the time. Those positions they advocate on are decided at the state convention every year. So when we go through voting on, you give me your feedback on how you want me to vote on these issues. Those are the issues they lobby on. They don't, somebody mentioned to me that they would have thought that they would have lobbied on something about the masking requirements, but that had not been voted on at the state convention. So they don't on their own take positions. They are representatives. And so, if somebody brings that up this year and it gets voted at convention, that of course could be also added to the lobbying position.
Eddie?
Unfortunately, I disagree. They're sitting on the sidelines during the pandemic on several important issues, in my opinion. I was dumbfounded with their not taking a position one way or the other in supporting or not supporting certain things. Several years ago, we voted not to join, and then they grandfathered us in after that. With a reduced fee to try to get us back. Unfortunately, to a degree, I find the organization self-serving, and I will not be supporting them this year.
Are there any other comments? All those in favor? Against? You got it? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, 8.03, appointment of New York State School Board Association Advocacy Liaison.
Resolved that the Board of Education does hereby appoint trustee,
Well, there's two trustees. First of all, in my opinion, it's an extremely important advocacy liaison. So the legislative branch committee always advocates for certain issues. So I'd like to nominate Marie and the alternative trustee, trustee, I'm sorry.
I'll second Marie.
And also as a second alternative, Eddie Sasha. Okay, she's second, okay, so go ahead. Marie.
okay. Resolved that the Board of Education does hereby appoint trustee Marie Johnson to serve as the NISBA Advocacy Liaison, and trustee Eddie Sloshower to serve as the alternate NISBA Advocacy Liaison for the 2022-2023 school year.
Motion, Marie, second. Ms. Mike. Discussion, all those in favor? Unanimous. 8.04, New York State School Board Association Board Doc Pro. Now, before I say anything, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Resolved that the Board of Education does hereby approve the NISBA Board Docs Pro at the member rate of $9,000, effective August 1st, 2022 to July 31st, 2023.
Motion, Marie, second. I second it. Before we voted it, I'd like to have a comment from our board secretary. How essential is that to you? Lower it.
Board docs is the most efficient way to do a board agenda and minutes. I could not do my job efficiently for the board and for the district if I did not have that tool at my disposal. I've worked at previous school districts who did not utilize board docs, and what they used was Word. And when an agenda changes and you need to move paragraphs and charts, you deal with a formatting nightmare. I am efficient because I have board docs. And without board docs, I can't do my job. Thank you.
Jim?
I'd like to say that Ms. Pedro is just efficient, with or without board docs.
And she said to me, unless this is done, what did you say to me, Alberta? That you would what? She would leave tonight, so.
You are efficient with or without board docs, but I am full support of what you stated.
I second Mr. Spencer on that.
All those in favor, raise your hands. Unanimous. You got your wish. 8.05, New York State School Board Policy Update Services.
Resolved that the Board of Education does hereby approve the NISBA Policy Update Service Annual Subscription Agreement at the member rate of $900, effective August 1st, 2022 to July 31st, 2023.
Motion, Marie, second, Peggy. Discussion, those in favor? Unanimous. 8.06, designate board members to serve as standing committees. Before that, please, I'd like you to read the last statement on that particular page, Peggy, if you don't mind.
Yes. The board president is authorized to request volunteers or to appoint board members to required or standing committees. In addition, the board president has the authority to designate the committee chairperson per policy 2250. Required and standing committees require 2 to 3 board members unless specified in the charter. Ad hoc committees require a minimum of 2 board members in order to have a committee this year. The board president serves as ex officio on all board committees.
All right, so let's start with audit.
Wait, we just voted him that authority?
I'm sorry?
We just voted you that authority, huh, John?
It's 2250. Okay, audit committee, we start with the audit. Alberta, you ready?
I'm ready. It's coming up.
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna type when you tell me.
What's your say?
We've got it up on the screen.
She's going to type it as you read them,
Okay, very good.
so
Okay, audit
don't
committee.
get ahead of her.
Thank you.
Okay, audit committee, John Morgan, Marie Johnson, Keith Odoms, and the chair will be Mr. Morgan. District-wide school safety committee.
No,
Don't vote.
no, it's a policy. It's a
But
policy.
doesn't
He
the charter
picks them.
state- So we're changing all the charters?
No, we have not been following policy as of today. That was pointed out to me. I checked with the lawyer. And apparently the lawyer stated that according to policy 2250, the board president has the power to not only to appoint members, but also to appoint the chairman for that particular committee. That's what I was told.
Because it's required by the state, right? So that would be safe policy then.
That's in the
The
policy.
policy, see, we never, suppose we never follow the policy, and you're the policy advocate, so. So the audit, Morgan Chair, Morgan, Mr. Chairman, Morgan, Mr. Johnson, Ms. Johnson, and Keith Otis. District-wide safety team, Jim Spencer, Keith Otis, and Michelle Biggets. Darren is the chairman of that. The wellness, Kristen is the chairman of that, Peggy Kelly.
Wait, who was that?
The district-wide school safety team, Jim Spencer, Keith Otis, and Cheryl Biggets. Got that? Wellness. Wellness, Christian is the chairman, Peggy Kellen, Mike McFarland, Marie Johnson. Capital improvement,
John.
I'm sorry,
Okay, go ahead.
Okay,
capital
go.
improvement, Eddie Slushauer, Mike McFarland, Marie Johnson, the chair will be Slushauer. Now, so far as the curriculum, I'd like to make a statement before we vote on that. And I'm a member of obviously I'm a member of all the committees, as well as the curriculum committee. I've been to those committee meetings. They're extremely valuable, very valuable. As far as I'm concerned, too valuable just for the committee members. I think that particular presentation should be done to the entire board and to the entire community. As such, I recommend that particular committee, as it's formulated right now, be different, that we abolish it as a committee and just have each one of you send whatever you want, whatever presentation you want to be done to me, and I'll consult it with the superintendent as well as Ms. Michelle Carwell, so that the community can see exactly what is going on, as opposed to a few members that are in that particular committee. So I'll make a motion that, that's what the motion is going to read. We no longer meet, but the board members send requests to the board president for any presentation to be given at board meetings to highlight curriculum programs. The board president, in consultation with Dr. Carwell, will choose from those requested topics to be presented to the board and community. So I'll make that motion. Second. Discussion?
Yeah.
Eddie?
We're still going to allow Dr. Caldwell and the group to still meet to formulate. So that would be under her discretion to meet. Okay, so it's on, okay. Yeah, I don't want to, okay, I got
Ms. Morgan?
Are you saying that you don't consider the work that the committee does of value beyond the presentations that are listened to? Because having sat on the committee for the past year, we've had meetings that are lengthier than some of our Board of Education meetings. Are we proposing that all of those presentations be folded into this meeting, or would it be reasonable to have that committee continue to meet, but choose highlights, important topics that are of interest to the Board of Education to be presented at Board of Education meetings, as opposed to blanketly doing that?
It's my feeling.
I'm asking a question of the person that made the motion.
Those particular meetings go forever, as you well said. I do not, we can afford to have obviously all those particular presentations. We can, whatever presentation we want, and that to be done to the board. You know, whatever presentation we want, I'll go to the superintendent, Dr. Carwell, so Dr. Carwell will want a presentation on such an issue, and that presentation will take place to highlight, we can highlight, you know, for example, what the district is doing, what the professional developers are doing, what teachers are doing. We can just pick specific topics to be presented. We obviously cannot have, sometimes we have 3 or 4 presentations on those committee meetings. We can't have all those at one time, but the particular one, I think we should. Yeah, go ahead.
I do want to point out that during the election this year, which was a particularly contentious election, One of the things that we heard through local radio programs and in social media was a lot of dissent from the community because there was the perception that Dr. Cardwell is the only person in the district who has any input on curriculum. And so there was a lot of unrest among the community for that.
That's why I think it's important that the presentation be done in public so that, and we'll have discussion on those presentations so that people that don't have that particular misconception, that misconception be corrected. And again, that particular committee, to me, what presented to the child, myself, whether the other members are exceptional. And I think the committee should know exactly what's being done to help educate our students. That's why I think we could use Dr. Caldwell to spotlight programs. And there'll be at particular meeting, there'll be discussions so that, and the committee can be involved. Yeah, go ahead.
I've also been a member of the committee since it was formed, and I must say I was one of the people who thought it was a good idea to have it. I've enjoyed the meetings very much, and I agree with Mr. Morgan that the meetings have been very long, but that's usually because we see.
That's not what I said.
No. I'm not saying that you were saying that it was bad because of that, but I do agree that they've been long, usually because we've had several presentations. And I agree with Mr. Lumia that we should, these are valuable information, which as Mrs. Miggett said, should be shared with the community because I learned things at them that, even as a former teacher in the district, things have changed a lot since I retired. And it's good to hear these, but the whole community needs to hear them in the board so that we know when we're talking about curriculum and people in the community have questions about the curriculum, they understand exactly what we're doing. Although I enjoyed the committee meetings, I really feel that they should be. It's not really appropriate as a committee because the committee just basically watched presentations. We weren't making decisions. Any decisions that would be made, of course, should be the board anyway.
I think look, most board meetings, we go through motions. We pass this, we pass this, we pass this, we pass this. Very rarely do we have discussions on what I think is important, namely curriculum topics. It's about time that we start spotlighting what the district is doing. And I think that's what should be done at board meetings.
If I could just,
John?
if I could just interject.
Yeah, by all means.
If I could just, I agree that we need to do more promotion at board meetings of all of the great things that this school district does. And that, in my opinion, should be the bulk of our meeting. So my suggestion would be, and this is just my suggestion, I think the committee has value, maybe pare down the amount of time that it needs, maybe pare down the responsibilities, have it serve as a working committee to make recommendations, and then the presentations are given by Dr. Cardwell, her directors of curriculum, or the professional development specialists at a board meeting in a spotlight for a 15-minute period of time, and then the board has an opportunity to ask questions. And then the board has the opportunity to make the decision, which in all reality, the board is responsible for.
See, it seems to me that the committee itself, the Board of Education members should decide the topics that should be spotlighted. And not just the 2 or 3 of us that are on the committee. So, but again, if the majority of the board thinks the committee should still go on, it's fine, it's okay with me. But if not, Jim?
So first, Dr. Bonk stole my thoughts.
I'm sorry.
Because I know that there's a difference between some understanding you get from being in a meeting versus having someone just spotlight particular items. I like the idea of paring down meetings, but still having that committee. And then from that meeting, whoever is whatever board members are in attendance can say, hey, at the next board meeting, we should speak about, or we should present X, Y, and Z.
Can we have Dr. Cardwell speak?
That's absolutely.
Dr. Cardwell, please, I'm sure you may have a
spoke
take
already.
on this.
We spoke on it.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Dr. Cardwell.
So I love having the curriculum committee meetings. There are 4 board members on the committee. We also have teachers and administrators. We do collect topics at the beginning of the school year from the 4 board members as well as the other staff members on what we want to discuss that year, because you can't discuss everything in one particular year. I do agree that we should get topics from other board members, what they would like the committee to discuss, to review, and to look at. Remember, all of the curriculum and presentation and all the information is presented for a review of the committee. And if there were any concerns, we would then follow up with that department and the curriculum to make any particular changes. I mean, I would like to see the committee continue if possible, but also share that information with the Board of Education and the public on a more scaled down presentation. But I don't know if we could do it in 15 minutes, Dr. Buck.
Marie?
Okay, with this committee, I've attended a few of them as just a person, and I've sat back, and yes, there are some of the presentations go on for a longer period of time. But I feel like the committee does need to stay intact. We should definitely have our spotlights brought back to where they were supposed to be to begin with. But also, I know there's a lot of times we can't get everything on the agenda. So if you're saying that we can only do this during a board meeting, it could really make us stay here till midnight again. And I don't know if we want to start doing that. When it's going through the committee, it can be pared down. They can see 2 or 3 presentations and be, you know what, that one, we really want to make sure the whole board sees it. And then it can be presented to the board in a more concise forum, and you're going to already have the back and forth exchange from the committee that will go into the presentation that they would give to the full board, and then we can have discussion from there. That's just my opinion. I don't think we should disband it.
Jim?
I just have one other thing to add. If this committee is truly just for the sake of presentations from Dr. Carwell and the staff about what's going on, then if there's no back and forth, no voting, then why can't we open it up to more board members? So that, the reason why 5 of us don't get together is because then you'll have a quorum, and then that brings other issues. But if it's the same thing as us all sitting here for a presentation, a play or something like that, if it's the same sort of thing and we're not voting, and there's no discussion, then why can't we open it up to other people? Or can we?
Is that acceptable? There are more than four board members on that committee? I don't think so.
If you did it like a parent university and opened it up to the community then you can certainly attend as a social event.
Yeah, perhaps we could, then it would be better to have it in that format than as a board committee, because then everybody could come who wanted to, including community members.
Remember, we do have, we set aside a large chunk of time for questions and answers. That's a main part of the movie. So of the meeting. So whereas there isn't necessarily voting that takes place on the curriculum, you are expressing any concerns that you may have, any follow-up, any challenges, any things you want to comment on. So if we change the format, the purpose was for the committee to be involved, to make recommendations if recommendations were needed as a follow-up. So, that's fine. Just understand we may be changing the format a little bit.
Thank you, Dr. Carwell, for clarifying.
And also, thank you, because I believe the perception a couple of minutes ago was that we sat in the room and listened to presentations. Could I suggest respectfully that perhaps the motion be withdrawn and that a curriculum committee be appointed, and that curriculum committee study different ways to improve the communication about curriculum through Board of Education committees, and report back to the board no later than the September meeting?
I'm in favor of that. It's no problem. Fine, I'll withdraw the motion. So I'll make the appointments. Yeah, Eddie.
Obviously, we don't want to stay here all night long listening to different things. I think it's right, good, well, different topics, whatever. But, again, we could have them come and do a quarterly presentation. So we're not doing every single board meeting where we're here. And, if that one meeting, we're here an extra 30 minutes or an hour, then I think it's worth it if that's what we're going to do. And that way, whether it's topics that they're working on, concerns that board members may have that they could send in to have the committee review, put a small presentation together, and then each quarter, we can have a bulk of, that slot for a spotlight. We give it 30-minute presentation, 15-minute Q&A, and it's a 45-minute thing every quarter, or something like that.
I make a recommendation, just
I second that.
have the board members actually send to the committee topics that they want the committee to discuss and possibly bring it to the board, the entire board. Is that okay?
Okay, I think that would be a fine idea. We can also revisit the parent university piece to inform the public on a lengthier presentation that's not at a board meeting for those topics that we deem are necessary at the time. So we could definitely do that as well.
Okay, then in that case, the curriculum, Kellen, Mr. Morgan, Mr. Odoms. Personnel? Oh, sorry, got that?
You have a question, yeah?
Sorry, Cheryl?
Yes, I'm just wondering why you're overlooking me since this is my area of
Because I
expertise.
do in all kinds of committees.
And because I was the only one who showed an interest for this committee on the survey.
Fine. Okay, the curriculum, Kellen, Morgan, and Megan. That's fine.
Don't be shy next time,
And just point out this, I looked at it, tried to keep people to 3 to 4 committees, to 3 committees. In case you're not gonna be in 5, you're gonna be in 5 different committees.
This is my expertise.
That's fine. No. You teach at Dutchess, so I think it's a good idea. Very good. Personnel, Jim Spencer, Chair. Peggy Kellen, John Morgan. Policy, got that? Peggy Kellen, Chair. Marie Johnson, Keith Odoms. Strategic Planning, Darren's the chairman. Jim Spencer, Eddie Slushauer, Cheryl Miggins. Got it? School Council Advisory Council, Mississippi's the chair. Keith Odoms, John Morgan. Legislative Action Committee, Cheryl Miggins is chair.
Well,
McFarland,
you should
Marie
stop,
Johnson.
you should stop and go to the next agenda item,
I'm sorry?
8.07. Stop and go
Oh,
to the
okay,
next
that's,
agenda
yeah,
item.
I apologize. Okay, you're right. Thank you. All right. All right, 8.07, Peggy?
Okay. The board president will request volunteers for the board ad hoc committees. Ad hoc committees require a minimum of 2 board members in order to have a committee this year. The board president serves as ex officio on all board committees. Resolved that the Board of Education of the Wappinger Central School District does hereby establish the board goals, community communications, legislative action, and legal services billing review as board ad hoc committees for the 2022-2023 school year. Please note, any board ad hoc committee, excluding subcommittees, which is established by the majority of the board, must submit a revised charter outlining the focus of their work this school year to the Board of Education for approval.
Which one's the first one?
Board
Board goals?
Board goals.
Okay, board goals, it's gonna be, Keith Odoms? Marie? I'm sorry?
On board goals subcommittee, you cannot have anybody that will be up for reelection this year.
Okay, you're right, up for reelection, all right? In that case, Mr. McFarland, Marie Johnson, and Jim Spencer.
Excuse me,
I'm sorry?
President Lumia, similar to a comment that was made earlier, if I recall correctly from what I reviewed over the weekend, there was only one person that expressed interest in that committee.
Would you just press exclude? Okay,
You can take me off,
that's
John.
fine.
John, you can take me
John,
off.
I had you, I did have John Morgan's the chair, you're right. I have you here, I don't want to take ketos. John Morgan, Marie Johnson, and Jim Spencer.
Or leave me on.
And Mr. Morgan is the chair. What's the next one?
Community communication.
I got both.
Communications Committee. Marie Johnson, chair. Peggy Killen, Cheryl Miggins. What's the next one?
Legislative action.
Cheryl Miggins, Mike McFarland, Eddie Slushauer. The chair, Ms. Miggins. What's the next one?
Legal billing.
Now, legal billing, to me, I'd like to just make a little statement. I think that particular committee should be, in my opinion, should be abolished for the following reasons. Every month, the Board of Education is provided with invoice from our attorneys every month. Since I've been on the board, there's never been an instance where there was a question on billing. Every board member has access to that report. So if there's any problems or concerns that can be addressed with the board president, superintendent. Anyone's ideas as to how to save money with the billing can certainly make those suggestions to the board president, superintendent. As such, I don't see any reason why we have to have this particular committee. So I make a motion to abolish it.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Point of information. So we're abolishing a committee that we just made a motion to. I just want to clarify what we're doing here. So we just had a recommended action that included that committee, and now we're going to abolish it.
No, there's no way to approve that committee. That committee is, we gotta look at that committee right now. Before we appoint people to that particular committee, I'm making a motion that we abolish that committee for the simple fact that every month, each one of us gets statements.
That's accurate.
And I never see any problems. If the whole purpose of the committee was established to try to save us money, if that's my understanding. So it seems to me that if people still feel they can save money, there's no need to have a committee, in my opinion. But again, it's a board will to either keep it as it is, or I make the motion to get rid of it. Eddie?
Unfortunately, due to circumstances last year, the committee never had the opportunity to actually meet to present any of its findings to the full board. So I would ask that we have it at least for another year, and if it deemed that it doesn't make sense to move forward, we just haven't been able to present anything to the board because we weren't able to meet last year. So the real purpose behind it wasn't presented to the board at all. So I realize the board does get quarterly statements to review, but there's concerns that were raised a year or so ago with certain areas of where we're spending money, and that's what we were looking at to be addressed. So, but if it's the will of the board, so be it.
Is that a concern with, since I've been in this role where money has been spent? Could you clarify your concern?
The concern is nothing specific with individuals within senior staff or buildings or anything like that. It's decisions made by the board in certain areas as to where we're spending money. And the objective is to really look at those items to see whether the decisions that the board is making make sense, or if there's a way that we can make some better decisions collectively where we're not spending as much money on legal fees.
So in all actuality, it's not a question as to when administration contacts the attorney.
Absolutely not.
It's a question as to when the board determines that they want legal assistance with a situation.
That is correct.
Okay.
And as well as the steps that are associated with those decisions.
I appreciate the clarification.
We're all on the board, and so I just don't understand how a committee of 2 or 3 people audits the entire 9. I mean, if you have a concern.
No one's auditing anything. It's to point out certain areas
You can
that
do that
we
at- you
are
can do that at any
spending money that perhaps we need collectively to look at, where we may come up with suggestions, recommendations, or strategies where we're not spending excessive amounts of money in certain areas. That's all.
Okay.
Well, I still make the motion to oppose the bid. I don't think that money's being spent wisely. Anytime there's board questions, we contact the attorney. We first of all try to contact the state. If the state cannot
It's
answer.
not a question. It's not a question of asking for legal advice for certain things.
It's where the money's being spent. Can you give me
In
specific-
specific areas.
Like, could you be more specific?
I believe, Mr. Lumia, if I'm recalling correctly and trying to read between the lines, I believe there was a report that was, or this was a topic for executive session once or twice, and those sessions ran long, and it was bumped. So I wasn't a member of the committee. I remember when it was established. My point being, maybe this isn't the best forum to discuss this, because just listening, I sort of hear people sort of saying very general things, trying to say something else, if I'm listening correctly.
Well, my motion still stands, so second, all those in favor of opposing the committee, please raise your hands. All those keeping it, obviously, the majority keeps it. With that being said, let's make the appointments. Who was in the committee last time?
Me, Eddie, and Peggy.
Eddie, who else?
Me, Eddie, and Peggy, but we just couldn't get us together because of all the stuff going on.
Okay, being that you're already chairman.
Mr. Morgan.
Boy,
Weren't you on the committee? Did you say you wanted?
No, I was not.
would you want to be on it?
I'd be willing to.
Fine. You, Marie, and I guess who's going to be the chair? You'll be the chair. Fine.
I have.
And with that means that's all the committees, correct? I think.
I have one point of order question. Ms. Pedro, if you could clarify, these are ad hoc committees. In the charters of the ad hoc committees, it specifically states the chairperson is to be voted on. So are we going to now have to amend the charters on all of the ad hoc? Because I was under the impression that the board president appoints chair people on
I believe.
committees that are mandatory from New York State. Does that also apply
No,
for ad hoc?
we have to make our policy match our charters. So if the charter is saying that, and our practice has been, the committee appoints
Right.
the chair, the board members on the committee appoints the chair, but apparently it is, in fact,
Policy.
in the policy. So either the policy needs to change. which
Or we
would
have to
be
amend the charters at the first
Correct.
meeting
Every.
of every ad hoc,
every committee.
of every
I
ad
would
hoc.
look at every committee, even standing ones.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Everybody with it? Okay.
Um,
Yeah, Eddie.
I wanted to make a motion to add this quick discussion item with regards to committees.
Sure.
I need a second.
Can I just go back a second? When Peggy read the initial ad hoc resolution, I never got a motion and a second
Right.
to establish these. We kind of went into the discussion part of it.
Almost.
So can I get that motion?
Why don't you
and then
make the
we can
motion,
go on?
Peggy second, all those in
Thank you.
favor? Raise your hand. Okay.
Thank you.
Eddie,
Okay, I made a motion, Jim second. So we need a discussion. Is everyone okay with that?
what motion?
Can you tell me your motion, Eddie?
What's the motion?
Well, I wanted to add a discussion item with regards to committee as per board policy.
Thank you.
Second? All those in favor? Okay.
Okay, thanks. Well, we're trying to follow what we're supposed to be doing, so let's just correct everything. I just wanted to bring to the board's attention as a discussion item, we have an existing policy on the books under 2000 Governance and Operations, 2260, which is Citizens Advisory Committees. This is something that was last reviewed back in January of 2020, but obviously with everything that's going on, or had gone on. We've never had any discussion on it, and actually prior to 2020, this has still been an existing policy, but we've never really exercised utilizing it in any way. So I just wanted to bring it to the board's attention. If anyone was interested, if we think about establishing these specific committees. We do have certain areas within the district of items that I do believe we really should be more proactive on and not reactive. Obviously, with everything going on with the pandemic, I think anything that we can do to involve professionals within our community with regards to mental health, I think is important, as well as the drug addiction. Also moving forward, which I've mentioned, either between capital and municipality. As of right now, the town of East Fishkill has brought in $500 million of economic development, with another $500 million of economic development that'll probably be here within the next year or two. Obviously, that creates jobs and people who are going to relocate. Also, through our two largest municipalities, the town of East Fishkill and the town of Wappingers, we have close to 1,000 homes that are in front of the planning boards. I think it might be a good idea that we get the community involved and experts within that community that can meet and make recommendations to the board in order to make some proactive decisions moving forward. Obviously, it's not something that's going to happen right away, but before we turn around, these things are going to be on top of us, and we're going to have to come up with solutions to class sizes, to overcrowding in buildings. And again, if we're going to go down the road where we're going to have to figure out what we're going to do with another 2,000 or 3,000 kids coming into the district, I think sooner rather than later. So I want to just ask, I don't want anybody to make any decisions, but I just want to ask everybody if they could review policy 2260 for the next board meeting. I'll ask President, Vice President, the Superintendent if we could make it again another agenda item discussion in August. This is a committee that meets and reports to the board only. So this is not something that's held in public. I think the idea of engaging our community with experts in the medical field, in counseling, in mental health, local real estate, and things of that nature. And those are just 3 topics off the top of my head. I'm sure there's others. So anything that the board may have a concern with that we could utilize the expertise of our community members, I think it would be a positive moving forward. That's all. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So just for clarification purposes, so this would be, the board would establish a citizens advisory committee on certain issues that the board felt that they needed community advisement in. They would establish that committee, and that would become a working committee in regards to whatever issue may be that day or that week or that month. It wouldn't be one committee that would handle everything. It might be, as you say, mental health. We're going to have a mental health committee. We have this issue. We have an overcrowding issue. We have this. I'm just trying to.
Based on the language, it has citizens advisory committees, which would be setting up separate committees for specific items. If this is, again, something the board is full board is interested in, we could always go to the policy committee and have it amended to that way. We could have, let's say, 6 people. There's 3 topics. We have 2 experts within the community, and the board puts together, we want additional information on these 3 items, either the 3 I just mentioned or 3 totally different, and they can make their recommendations to the board, and then we could either make a decision, what direction to go into. Take their advice, not take their advice. That's all. All I'm just bringing this up is because it's already an established policy.
That's similar to what we did in the great reconfiguration.
May I say?
Something to that, but not to that.
Well, that's why.
That's a problem.
To that level. That was a topic that we felt that had to be done by prior administration, and then they went out to include the community.
The big problem I see, that's the problem. We had 2 committees, one for grade configuration and one for redistricting. And both times the committee came to the board with recommendations. Guess what the board did? They rejected both recommendations. And we made enemies, in my opinion, with the community because we did not take their suggestion. The valid suggestion, but ultimately the board made the decision. So unless we have specific topics.
Well, again, if you read the policy, it tells you it is specific direction. That's all. All I'm asking is everyone give it a read, and if it's something we want to continue to have a conversation on, great. If not, I'm just saying it's already in it's there. We're not utilizing it. Or do we just or does the policy committee abolish it? That's all. I just think it engages the community. I think with mental health and some other issues, as Dr. Bonk and the administration has done, has created positions to bring on additional people, which is great. But let's be honest, adding 8 or 9 or 10 or 12 people is great, but I don't think that's enough. And I don't think that gets to the root cause of issues and concerns and problems that are happening within the district and within the community. So if we happen to have several community members that work for mental health of Dutchess County and are willing to volunteer some time to give us some additional information, additional recommendations on what we can do as a community, I think that's important, but that's just my opinion.
I'm sorry. Cheryl.
Yes, I think we also run the risk of making enemies in the community if we're not listening to input from particularly knowledgeable people in the community. And if we look at the news every day, we can see that this is a big issue nationwide, that parents and community members feel that they are not being valued and listened to. Even if the board eventually goes against the recommendation that the committee makes, at least we're giving voice to the opinions from the community.
Also, one other point, just to piggyback, within the outline of the policy, the board members decide who is on the committee based on areas of expertise. So this is not going to be, or wouldn't be, a committee where we're asking for volunteers to join. So they have to have specific skill sets for whatever the topic is. So if we're addressing mental health, this person has to have, obviously, skill sets. Either that's what they do for a living and so forth. So it's not as what happened before, where we're just getting community members to come in and voice their opinions. We're actually going out into the community and seeking advice and recommendations from these particular individuals that have areas of expertise.
So Trustee Sloshar, how would you that working along with the administration, meeting regularly with the Dutchess County Department of Behavioral and Community Health?
I think that's fantastic that you're doing that, but to me, the more input, the more recommendations, the more information that we can get. I'm saying if they work there, that's great, but let's say somebody works at a different facility someplace else.
No, I understand. What I don't understand is, what is the overall arching goal of the committee? To make a recommendation to the board based upon their work? And then the board's going to vote as to whether to accept it or not?
Well, yeah, it would be to gather some information, and whether or not does it fit with what we're looking to do? Does it help? All it is just it's getting the community involved in topics that again, I'm just using mental health. I mean, it could be the real estate development. Okay, I mean, we're going to need to know and have a better idea what's going on if we're going to have to look at increased class sizes and specific buildings on the southern side that may have an influx of 500, 800, or 1,000 students. How are we going to handle that? What's our game plan going to be? What recommendations would they have? That's all.
Jim, I just think that we have a public comment portion of the board meeting for a reason, and someone could accuse us of cherry picking certain members of the community just to be on this committee.
Okay.
I'm not done.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And we don't want to be exclusive. We want to be inclusive of the entire community. Public comment is for everyone. So if you have that expertise, we can call for folks in the community with certain expertise to speak at certain meetings when we have issues that we'd like to discuss. I'm just fearful that we might be perceived as having a group that we want giving us certain information and not representative of the entire community. Peggy.
I'd like to speak from experience because I have been on a number of citizen advisory committees over the years. A couple for Dutchess County, one for the Community Action Agency, and then for the Environmental Management Council. for the town of Poughkeepsie, the Strategic Plan Committee, and the Conservation Advisory Committee, and the school district for the redistricting plan. In every one of those, the people who were on the committees, the advisory committees, were very sincere. We did a great deal of work. In none of the cases were any of our suggestions followed by the boards that actually had the power. It was interesting. Yes, they were interesting to be on them. We put in a lot of effort and made a lot of good friends with the other people on the committee, but I don't think they were really anything other in the long run than window dressing. And I really wonder whether we're asking people to participate in something that they could, if we want their opinions, we can get them very readily. All of us would have been happy, we're happy to share our opinions, but I just wonder the value of this whole concept.
John,
Practice.
John, Morgan,
I don't wonder about the intent of what was expressed, which was that we all review, which I don't have it committed to memory, I'll freely admit, that we all review policy 2260. That's what was asked. Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
I think what he called our attorney already reviewed that particular policy, I believe, right? Alberta? Did the attorney review that policy already? They made some recommendations. Leslie will share with the board. But one last comment. People have come to the microphone to express their opinion on different subjects. Some very, we listen. The superintendent listens. There's no reason why people in the community who are experts in specific fields can come to the microphone. They're welcome to come. And I listen, and I think everybody on the board will listen too. But anyway, we'll think about what John said regarding policy 2026, and we'll come back at some future date.
And then my last comment would be just based on the will of the board, either something we could develop, and if not, then I would refer it over to the policy committee, because if it's something that we are not going to do, then it should not be a standing policy.
I agree 100%.
Within our overall policy manual. That makes no sense.
That's fine.
Thank you.
8.08, appointment board member liaisons for local municipality meetings.
Resolved that the Board of Education is hereby trustee Sloshower to serve as the board representative at the superintendent's local municipalities meetings for the 2022-2023 school year.
Motion, Marie, second. Becky.
Can I ask if trustee Sloshower would be the only appointee? Is there only?
Can we have multiple appointees to that? I think the two people expressed interest. Go ahead.
Yes, since obviously this is something that I had established. We did create first year an alternate. So if that's something.
I'll make it an alternate.
If somebody wants to.
Mr. Spencer has been the alternate to that committee. And perhaps the two of you can either share.
Well, also, to be honest with you, sometimes town board meetings are on the same night. Can't be at two places at once. So if you want to coordinate, that's fine.
Okay, all those in favor? Others not in favor, this motion unanimous. 8.09, approval to accept letters of interest on committees.
Resolved that the Board of Education does hereby approve the district clerk to begin accepting letters of interest from community members for consideration by the below listed committees. Letters must include name, contact information, and any specific qualifications and/or expertise that would serve the work of the committee in accordance with their applicable charter. Letters will be accepted through September 19th, 2022, thereby affording potential members with the opportunity to learn of the available committee openings and to learn more about the committees themselves.
Motion, Marie, second. Peggy, all those in favor? Unanimous? Okay, I'll make a motion to go into executive session. Peggy? Second, I'm sorry.
9.01
Resolved.
Start a regular board meeting, but this is me, I understand.
Resolved that the Board of Education does hereby motion to adjourn to executive session for the purpose of discussing a matter leading to the appointment of a particular individual. The board also plans to discuss a matter leading to the discipline of a particular staff member. The board also plans to discuss updates on the negotiations with the following unit: WTAA, teaching assistants.
Motion, Marie, second. So Peggy, all those in favor? We should be back in about an hour, everybody. Thank you.